Duckworth
Yep.
at the final hour. I mean, like, you did everything you needed to do besides getting a running back. I think that's probably the one thing that South Carolina whiffed on.
But you also made a change when that didn't happen, saying, hey, this is not acceptable that we're going to go 2 straight cycles without signing one.
Exactly. So, I think honestly what we've seen, as bad as this year was for South Carolina football, I think we saw the best way I could put it, I feel like, is that Shane kind of, quote unquote, grew up a little bit in that he put on these big boy pants and he decided to make changes that he felt were necessary. Because you got to remember, like, he had never fired a coach mid-season before this year, and he did that twice this season with Lonnie Teasley and Mike Shula. And then, like you said, Tyler, as soon as South Carolina didn't sign a running back in the high school ranks for this 2026 class, he went ahead and cut Mark Wellblack while the running backs coach loose the next day. And then he's, I think people are going to be like, oh, well, why did it take so long to get these 3 coaches hired? I mean, it's a process, right? But he went out there, did his due diligence, and I think he got the right guys. Now, getting the right guys now versus what it's going to look like during the season are 2 totally different things. You got to go out there and make it happen. But I think on paper, South Carolina is better today than they were on November 29th when the season ended, for sure. Not to mention, you're getting Lenore Sellers back. That could be really good. Now the next step is getting some other players back and also going into the portal and adding some new pieces.
Yeah, and look, we're not going to be able to go through this offseason with the same amount of hype that we did last year, not just from a local standpoint, but like this team was relevant nationally. Again, you closed out the 2024 season as perhaps the hottest team in all of college football. We obviously know the hype that Sellers was getting in the offseason, and where it made it very easy for us because just about every single day we're coming here saying, all right, here's what this national outlet said about Carolina. Here's what this person has as far as their playoff projections with them in there. Here's what this, outlet has in terms of Heisman race and where they have Sellers and all that kind of stuff. Most of those things probably aren't going to exist this offseason. Now, the Sellers hype could still be a thing with the pairing of Kendall Briles and all that kind of stuff, but Carolina is not going to be as relevant nationally going into this upcoming season. I still think you have to be mostly radio silent in the offseason. Like, again, I don't think most people are going to want to see goofy videos or parodies or things like that being churned out by the Gamecock football Twitter account, in the months of March or whatever, because they're going to be met with get back to work and improve on 4-8. So I still think you have to be careful about how you navigate this offseason from a content standpoint and what messages are getting out there. But again, so far so good with everything that you could have done up to this point, really.
You can have fun. I don't disagree with. I don't fully agree with the narrative that, hey, you can't do anything fun. Like, you have to work. Like obviously that's what they're doing right now, right? I mean, like, do you think Beamer's playing around when he's firing coaches left and right and doing all these different things to improve his team? No, he's getting to work, right? And I think that's what people want. That needs to continue here through the offseason. That said, if you're not having fun, I mean, what's the point, right? I mean, you gotta have some good culture, and I think we see that word brought up all the time. And the way to do that is, to have fun playing this game. But it's not fun when you lose, right? So you need to go out there and just get everything remedied this offseason. Make it feel like this team can go out here and be competitive this upcoming year. And I think what's going to help, Tyler, is what you brought up earlier of, like, the hype of this offseason will not be the same. And maybe that plays to South Carolina's advantage, quite honestly, because they're going to be viewed as the quote-unquote underdog. And that's exactly what they were 2 years ago, and it worked out pretty well. So I think it's entirely possible we see that same scenario apply here, where South Carolina does view themselves as the underdog whenever the projections come out.
Yeah, unfortunately, their best seasons come off of years where nobody's expecting anything out of them, right? Because in 2021, all right, you won 7 games. That exceeded expectations. We know was expecting much out of you in 22, and you obviously pulled off the 2 huge upsets and played in a solid bowl game and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, then you go 5-7, and then going into the 24 season, nobody expected much out of you, and you go out there and have one of the best seasons in program history. Go 4-8 this year. So hopefully that is a catalyst for you going out there and having an 8-9, maybe a 10-win season, coming up next year. Because, again, nobody's going to be thinking about you very highly. I imagine when the polls come out at media days in the summer, you're probably going to be thought of as one of the teams in that bottom 4 category, 12th to 16th or whatever it may be. And, people aren't going to really be paying you much attention. But for whatever reason, that seems to be when this program, at least under Beamer, does their best work. So that's what we can, I guess, put our optimism in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would totally agree with that, is that they do perform well when the lights are not shining so bright on them. When they are, it's kind of a different story. But I think South Carolina's got you got to go one step at a time here. South Carolina will eventually have to learn how to win when the pressure's on. And maybe the pressure will be on this season because Shane's going to be coaching for his job, I think, in a lot of people's opinions. He may not outwardly say that, but I think it's true. I mean, he's got a very hot seat coming into the season. So it'll be different from that standpoint of there will be pressure unlike anything before. But in terms of performing when the lights are on and people are expecting you to win, I haven't really seen that consistently from South Carolina yet. So you got to go one step at a time here. But I think getting that underdog mentality back in your corner may be a good thing. But at the same time, it's like there's no time to fool around. Like, you got to be able to win right out of the gate here to save Shane's job.
Well, and as we detailed last week when the schedule came out, you've got another tough slate once again. 4 of the 5 SEC teams that are going to be in the college football playoff starting this weekend are on your schedule next year, and those are going to be tough games. Who knows what Clemson's going to be next year? You just assume they're going to be a tough opponent, as they always are. And in today's world of college football with the portal and everything like that, teams can really turn on a dime. And I know that we look at Arkansas, we look at Florida, we look at Kentucky with new head coaches. Well, they could go be the next Indiana for all we know. And Will Stein could have the best team in the entire country, and you're going to have to play them early on in the season. So it's going to be an uphill battle. But, again, for what you've done so far this offseason, it's just about everything you can ask for. And we're trending towards Dylan Stewart and Nick Harbor also returning. That's not official yet, but the report's out there that it's heading in that direction. And you get both those guys back, and I mean, that's really everything that you could have imagined. Again, yeah, you're going to lose Jalen Kilgore and Brandon Cisse, but that was kind of expected. But getting Harper back, getting Dylan Stewart back, and Sellers back, like those are 3 pretty significant returners you're going to have next year to build around.
That's your core right there that you can go ahead and build around, and that sets the foundation for your roster heading into next season. Of course, you'll have the supporting cast players returning as well, but for the most part, you want your stars back. And if you lose a few other big names, okay, that's going to happen here with Cisse and Kilgore. But hopefully now you can go get those guys back and then bring in a whole new crop of really good talent.
So what are we looking at in terms of checklist for the transfer portal that opens up here in a couple weeks? We'll dive into that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry with you on your Tuesday on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on your Tuesday on the Game. Again, not a whole lot of stuff going to be coming out from Gamecock football over the next couple weeks until we get into the transfer portal, though we will be waiting to see what other guys do declare to go into the portal at that point. The one thing that Beamer and this coaching staff did really well a season ago was not losing anybody of high value, I guess is the best way to describe it in the transfer portal. But we talk about the healthy transfers, and I always give Wes credit for coining that phrase. You didn't lose anybody that you said, oh, dang, there was that guy that was supposed to be this or that, or here's all this production that we lost to the portal a season ago. And that's very rare in today's world of college football. Even some of the bigger programs across the country can lose guys that are significant contributors on one or the other side of the football. And Carolina didn't do that last year. And so far, when you look at the guys that have gone into the portal, you haven't really lost anybody of high significant note yet, and you certainly hope that that trend continues.
Like, you lost Kilgore and Cisse, as we mentioned, but that's a different circumstance.
That's for the draft.
That's for the draft. Like, you expect to lose those quality of guys. But yeah, you're right. Like, you really haven't lost anybody of major note to the portal yet. Still have a little bit over 2 weeks until the portal opens. So we don't know yet for sure what guys are going to do. But not every guy, will come back, I'm sure. But you're going to lose a few guys here and there. I think mostly what you're going to lose, though, Tyler, like we said, is the guys that are going to go to the draft and those that are out of eligibility. Like, besides that, like, you should be relatively okay. Like, I think you're going to get a lot of guys back, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that is a good thing to get some younger guys back. This team was very young last year. Let's admit that, for sure. Like, if you're able to keep a lot of these young guys, and I wonder what guys like Mazeo Bennett are going to do. What does a guy like him do after a season that he had last year, where he just did, or season this year, where he just did not have the same amount of production or receptions that he had as a freshman, right? That's a guy to keep an eye on. Like, there will be guys like him that you want to watch out for to see what they do with the portal opening up. But I think for now, they are in a pretty good spot.
And Mazeo Bennett, that's a good one that you bring up there, because he's obviously somebody that came on the scene pretty quickly in his freshman year back in 2024, and this year seemingly got passed by guys like Brian Rowe, which is why he didn't play quite as much. And the way I'm looking at it right now, you have, if assuming Nick Harbor is coming back, and we don't have confirmation on that, but it is turning in that direction, you have 10 scholarship wide receivers as of right now when you count Quell Patterson coming in as a true freshman. So when you're looking at that, especially, again, when you're looking at kind of that slot position where Brian Rowe, again, had passed Mazeo Bennett by, it's not outside the realm of possibility to think that he might look at that and say, you know what, I want to try my hand somewhere else, get more playing time, whatever maybe. Or he sees that as a challenge, says, hey, I need to get myself better so I can get back on the field more this upcoming year. Again, I'm not inside his head. I don't know what he's thinking, but that is an area that, from a number standpoint, you don't really need a whole lot. Maybe you'd add a one or two guys. But again, if you start losing guys in the portal, definitely need to address that area. But one to watch, I would say, in terms of somebody like him that then might look at the situation and say, hey, I don't know if I have the pathway to play like I want to right now.
Mazeo seems like the type of guy to me that would be ready to come back and give go for a challenge, right? I think he's also a local guy. He's from Greenville. He's, grew up a Gamecock. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, he was originally committed to Tennessee out of high school, so you got to keep that all in mind. But I think once South Carolina came to the picture, that's when he decided to come to South Carolina, right? So yeah. I don't know. I mean, I was a little bit surprised by just how much of a lack of usage there was for Mazeo this year after last year. But I think it does have to do with what you just said, Tyler. There is a crowded receivers room, and there's only one ball, and the young guys made a big impact this year. Who would have thought that Jaden Sellers, the one guy in that freshman recruiting class for receivers that wasn't a 4-star, because he was a 3-star coming here from South Florence, the one guy that wasn't a 4-star in that receiver room from the freshman ranks made the biggest impact. I mean, that's just the type of year it was where you had different guys make an impact. And some of these 4-star freshmen didn't even see the field, right? Like Cyrus, Malik Clark saw action sparingly. Same with Jordan Gidron. Mazio wasn't the only one not to get targets this year. Now, he still played, so he's not going to be able to redshirt, I don't believe. But heading into next year, hopefully we'll use that as motivation to come back and be like, hey, I got to do something different to really set myself apart from these guys, because competition at the end of the day can be good, and you never really know when your number will be called. That's the other thing to think about here.
Yeah, from a number standpoint, the wide receiver room is good right now. Again, that can change if other guys decide to go into the transfer portal. But two areas that you certainly need more depth. Obviously, at running back, you only have 3 scholarship guys. As of right now, you're looking at 2, maybe even 3 out of the portal, depending on what you can land. And then tight end, we do have Brady Hunt coming back, so he's going to be probably your tight end 1 at that point. And we'll see. I was looking back. Kendall Briles does use the tight ends a lot in his offense, so that should be a pretty featured spot this upcoming year. But you only have 4 scholarship guys as of right now, so you at least need 1, maybe 2 to fill that room out a little bit more. And, hey, maybe you can find another experienced tight end like Jordan Dingle or somebody like you've had with Trey Knox, Josh Simon the past couple of years to complement what Brady Hunt is. Because, again, Mo Brown was a walk-on that has rightfully earned a scholarship, but, more of a featured special teams guy. Does get involved in the offense some. And then you have Mike Tyler and the Ramsey kid coming in as freshmen that we'll see where they're at in their respective areas of development, but definitely need a couple of guys just for more depth, if nothing else, in that tight end room.
You're hoping Mike Tyler can kind of take a step to play more this year, right? You lost Michael Smith to the transfer portal during the season, so that was kind of a big loss in the tight ends room. I think you probably need to go out here and add another tight end, someone to kind of complement Brady Hunt. And I'm not saying Mo Brown can't be that guy. I think he was given some opportunities to be that guy this year. But let's be honest, no one in the tight ends room really stood out this year, right? Like, they were not used as much as we had seen in years past. Like, Josh Simon was the leading receiver on this team as a tight end in 2024 by a long shot. So, knowing how Lenoris operates and knowing what works best for him, you got to get a good run game. But I think you also have to get a good tight end in there that he can consistently rely on. Not saying Brady Hunt can't, but I think getting a transfer in there that is proven to do it at a different school, put up a ton of yardage at a different school, bring him in to be that potential guy could be good for Lenoris.
And then, as Beamer talked about the other week, as always, seems to be kind of the case every single year. You're going to need depth at the offensive line and the defensive line. And again, Randy Clements gets the opportunity to evaluate what this offensive line is and see, okay, I've got my starting 5 here, or I need to go out and get some guys. But even regardless of that, evaluation, you just need more numbers there because, and again, maybe you're still shell-shocked from what happened a couple years ago with so many injuries, but you can never have too many offensive linemen, as we've learned, unfortunately. And you dealt with some injuries this year, too. Not as bad as it was in years past, but you always want to make sure you have enough bodies in that room. Same thing for the defensive line, especially if you can get some experienced veteran guys that can rotate in and play significant snaps. That would help out a lot.
No, it certainly would. I mean, you are going to have to really replenish on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Defensive line, maybe not as much. You will have to go out there and probably get a few guys just because you're losing Monkel Goodwine and Nick Barrett. However, on the offensive line, it's a different story. I think every guy that was a starter last year should have to win their job again next year. Like, it should not be a foregone conclusion that South Carolina could potentially just replace the entire offensive line because it was so pathetically bad last year. Like, it was hard to watch at times, honestly. And I think if you're Randy Clements, if you're Clem, you go out there and just see what you can do. Maybe bring in your own guys from TCU or, just go out there, add a new host of offensive linemen, and we'll see what happens. I think there are some guys who could definitely come back and make a big impact. I think Casey Henry, if he gets healthy. I still like Trobaugh. I like Josiah Thompson, some of these guys. But I think you're okay with letting some of these guys walk as, that's the one thing. That's the one position I think we could see some guys leave is we've talked about. There hasn't been a ton of big portal exits yet. Maybe the offensive line is where we see that as the cycle starts to heat up here in a few weeks.
Again, portal opens up officially on January the 2nd. As you've seen, you'll have more guys entering their name into it over the next couple weeks to say they're going to be in it as soon as it opens, and we'll see what Carolina is able to pluck from that over the course of that window being open. As we're going to do all week long, did it yesterday for South Carolina football. Going to take a look back at the best and worst of 2025. This time we'll focus on all other South Carolina sports. That's coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri with you on your Tuesday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Again, we are wrapping up the year 2025, and unfortunately, at least for the men's sports, it wasn't the funnest year. So we didn't have a ton of positives to talk about yesterday when it came to Gamecock football, more negatives than anything else. Obviously, that's what happens when you go 4-8. But today I want to expand this out to other non-football sports, right? Because we had a lot to choose from. Again, maybe not as many from basketball and baseball, but the women's sports had a really good year. In terms of other non-football related things, what is one thing that stands out to you as one of the best moments of the year, Jack?
Well, I think softball having the year that they did was a total surprise, I think, to some extent, that in basically not even a full year, a season after, in the immediate season to follow after firing a coach, you can go out and go one win away from going to the Women's College World Series. I mean, that's crazy to think about, especially in comparison to what happened on the men's side with baseball after, having to hire a coach and not doing well in the following season. So I think just overall, softball had a ton of success, and it's hard to really pinpoint just one specific moment that really stood out from softball. Obviously, the way the season ended stunk for them, for sure, but the year as a whole was just a really nice surprise and definitely a step in the right direction for a program that I think is starting to take itself a bit more seriously now.
Yeah, and that was what I had as kind of the one I listed first. And these aren't in any specific order, but, Bev Smith, for the time that she was here, was consistently getting this team into regionals. It was just not being able to take that next step that was her problem. She got them to a super one time back in 2018, but obviously every program wants to get to Oklahoma City and play for the Women's College World Series. And look, Ashley Chastain Woodard coming in here in her first year, nobody expected a whole lot, right? Because you're making the transition from coaching at Charlotte to coaching in the SEC, and yes, it's your alma mater, so you know what this league is like, but I think there was expected growing pains, especially with the overhaul of the roster. She brought in a lot of girls with her from Charlotte and all that kind of stuff, and if they would have, not even made the postseason, nobody would have been upset by it. It's like, all right, you're number one, get your feet under you, get a foundation set, and make your number two better. So to be quite literally an out away from going to the Women's College World Series, yes, it stings a lot because you were that close and you had UCLA, a great historic program in women's softball, on the ropes there in the bottom of that final inning. It stings a lot for how it ended, but man, when you look back on it, what an incredible first year, and that's something you're only going to be able to build off of. You out there, you get an Aspen Bowl where, in this latest recruiting cycle, for the future of this program, like everything is heading in the right direction for softball here at South Carolina, and I'm excited to see what year two has in store coming up in the spring.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you on that. So we're both in agreement on that first point.
That's my first one. What's another one for you?
Yeah, I think of all the bad things that happened to baseball this past season, I think the one bright spot, if there is a real bright spot, I think was Nathan Hall. The transfer from Clemson,
yep.
that Paul Mainieri had always spoken so highly of, and honestly thought, he was going to be like the next superstar here at Carolina and go be an MLB draft pick, which he was completely right about. For all the things that Paul Mainieri, said throughout his tenure in his first year, the one thing he was certainly right about that you can't knock him for was believing in Nathan Hall, and it certainly worked out. I mean, this was a guy that barely played at Clemson over his first 2 years, just did not see a ton of action in the outfield, and then he comes to South Carolina, and he immediately becomes your leadoff hitter eventually, and just a true difference maker. 7 homers, 38 RBIs, hit 322. I mean, just a really solid season. And honestly, he was your best player last year. Yeah. I think if Ethan Petrie hadn't gotten hurt towards the end of the year, maybe it's a different story, but Nathan Hall was unequivocally your best player and definitely the bright spot for South Carolina in 2025.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I'll focus in on an individual player here, too. I'll go over to women's basketball, and I'll put the emergence of Joyce Edwards, right? And look, she was highly touted coming out of high school, one of the biggest recruits in the entire country. Again, another one in your backyard, fortunately enough. And when you have the expectations set that high, not everybody's able to live up to those, but you can say unequivocally that Joyce Edwards has been able to do that so far. She mainly played that role coming off the bench last year, but you saw her continue to get better, continue to build her confidence as the year goes along, and now we're into year number 2 with her fully immersed in the starting lineup, third in the SEC in scoring as of right now, and just doing amazing things. Like again, you're being compared, and Asia Wilson herself said it when she came here for the Auburn game, I think it was last year. That's like, hey, she looks like a better version of me. And when the greatest women's basketball player on the face of the earth is telling you that, you must be doing something right. So we're still very early on in the era of Joyce Edwards and what her not only South Carolina career is going to be, but her women's basketball career as a whole. And she is already met and is exceeding expectations, I think, in everybody's eyes.
You're totally right. I'll stick with women's basketball for a second as well. For as disappointing as the season was to end with another blowout loss to UConn, just a team that just had South Carolina's number last year, I think we can't ignore the fact that South Carolina beat Texas 3 out of 4 times in the season. Like, how often do you see two teams play each other that frequently in a season, right? You know, South Carolina won the first matchup at home earlier this year in January. They lose the second matchup in a 4-point loss at Texas in February. Real close game there. Then they beat them to win the SEC championship because that was the coin flip that they got the number 1 overall seed in the SEC tournament, and then they blew them out in Greenville there. And then to get to the national championship game, they blow them out again in the Final Four. So for Texas being a dominant force coming into the SEC in women's basketball, I think that was just really impressive just because you don't see two teams play each other that much in one season.
My last one here, I'll go to men's basketball real quick, and Kyler Murray-Boyles ended up being a top 10 pick in this year's NBA draft. And you know, you hate the fact that you had that incredible talent and weren't able to do anything in his second year here at South Carolina, but dude played out of his mind, and I give him a lot of credit because we knew he had the potential to be a high pick very early on in the process, and he could have phoned it in, right? He could have gone out there, gone through the motions, tried not to get hurt, but I think the lasting memory I'll have of him is that last game that he played against Arkansas in the SEC tournament where he's out there, he's getting bloodied, busted lip, getting elbowed in the face. Like, this dude left it all out there for South Carolina. And again, the results for the team weren't what you wanted them to be, but I think he's somebody that people are going to remember very fondly, and I think we're all excited to see what he's going to do at the next level. And obviously, anytime you get somebody drafted that high, regardless of how the season is, that's a good promotion for the program. You've been able to do that with Kyler Murray-Boyles in this past year in the draft, and that's obviously a big deal.
No, for sure. I mean, he will go down as one of the better players that South Carolina has ever had. Definitely a recent memory, but it was a bad season for men's basketball, and same thing with baseball. But you got some pretty star players to come in, and both of them were drafted in Nathan Hall and CMB. So CMB definitely had a big impact. Sucks the season didn't go according to plan for him with the team, but overall definitely left his mark, and he was a top 10 draft pick. That's something South Carolina hasn't really had before.
We'll talk some of the worst that happened in non-football sports coming up next to wrap up the hour. Is the Extra Point, Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher wrapping up hour number 1 here on your Tuesday on the game. Went through our best moments, non-football, for South Carolina this year. Now it's time for the worst. And you did make mention of this a moment ago, Jack, but I'll start off with my number 1 overall. And again, we're not really ranking these, but I think this stands out for everybody. Losing the national championship in women's basketball, especially in the fashion that it was lost, where, I mean, really, UConn dominated in that game. And look, it's one thing to lose, but it's another thing to lose by a significant margin, which we don't really see a whole lot in the Dawn Staley era. And when you're a program that has the standard of being the best in the sport, anything short of that, it's obviously going to be a disappointment. So losing the national championship in the way that they did, definitely, probably for a lot of people, the biggest non-football disappointment this year.
Yeah, I think you almost have to put that one on there for sure. I think just losing in blowout fashion. Like, was it surprising that South Carolina lost? No.
That was a good UConn team.
Like, that's a great UConn. Like, nobody was beating UConn, I don't think. Like, that's the fact of the matter. And South Carolina just happened to beat everyone else to get to that point. So I think you almost have to put that in there. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could talk about as negatives from non-football sports, which we will certainly dive into here. But definitely you got to put the women's basketball national championship loss in there just because of how disappointing that game was on so many fronts. Like, South Carolina didn't stand a chance in that game, and that's the thing.
Was that one of yours?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, another one for me. We'll go back to baseball here. Paul Mainieri's handling of the Clemson series, and I mean this from the standpoint of his messaging afterwards, right? You get swept by your in-state rival, and his message is like, there's more important games to come. And, like, I understood what he was trying to say, but that did not sit well with people here because, like, hey, man, this rivalry means something. And the Clemson series is also the litmus test for what you are because it's the best non-conference opponent you'll typically see before SEC play begins. And that obviously, I guess, kind of set the table for what was going to be a disastrous year from a conference standpoint a couple weeks later. But I think nobody was a fan of the messaging after that game. It's like, yeah, well, it's just Clemson. We got bigger fish to fry coming up here in a couple weeks. Like, no, you need to readjust how you look at this series going forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great point you bring up there. And look, that's one of the many moments from baseball this year that were just like head scratching to say the least. I was at a handful of them. I was at that Clemson series. And I was at that press conference where Paul kind of talked about, kind of didn't really, stress the importance of the Clemson series. I think maybe that'll be different this year. But again, he's a guy that didn't grow up in this rivalry, right? So I think you got to give him a little bit of a break there. There are so many different series that you could pick. Honestly, you could just pick the entire season as a whole for baseball, and sure. I think that'd be okay. But I think the one specific moment of the season that sticks out is that weekend at Texas A&M. That's the moment where I think I wrote down publicly, in a story that was rock bottom for South Carolina.
Yep.
Because, I mean, the season was already getting away from you at that point. But to have 3 of just the most different losses you could have. Number one, you lost in extra innings on a walk-off home run on the Thursday game. You lost 17-0 in 7 innings and got humiliated in the middle game. And then you had a 12-2 lead in the 5th inning, and you lost 15-12, giving up 2 grand slams in the bottom of the 9th inning to lose 15-12. I've never seen games that could be so vastly different from each other, yet end up with the same amount of disappointment every single day. It was insane. It was the worst weekend I think I've ever seen for South Carolina baseball, and that series just summed up the season that South Carolina had.
Yeah, not a whole lot of positives from the baseball season overall. Not a whole lot of positives from men's basketball either, and that comes to my third one. I debated between just saying the 0-13 starting conference play, but I want to focus in specifically on the Florida game here that you led the entire way until the final 5 seconds. And that couples in with the Auburn game, where you also had them on the ropes for a lot of that game. You blew it to the 2 teams that would make the Final Four for the SEC, had both of them in positions where you could have beat them at home and didn't do either one of those.
I think if the North Florida loss didn't happen in 2024, technically, I know it's in the same season for the 2024-25 season, But since it happened last,
I'll count it if you want to.
I'm not going to count it because it did happen in 24.
Okay.
And this is 425. I could continue to harp on basketball, kind of like what you just said right there. I'm going to actually flip it over to softball.
Okay.
I mentioned it when I talked about how good the season was, but how disappointing the ending was. And it's kind of in a similar vein to women's basketball. Losing that middle game of the series to UCLA was a soul-crushing loss because at that point, you lose on a walk-off home run. You were, I think at the time, you were 1 out away.
Yeah, you were up 4-1 going into that inning.
Yes, you were up 4-1, and you have people starting to count in their fingers in the crowd saying, we're 3 outs away, all this. And that had been going on for a few innings. And that's like the worst thing you could do is to start counting outs. And then you see UCLA with all the power they have in that lineup finally come to life after not doing anything for basically the first 2 games of that series until that last inning. And yeah, just that walk-off home run, you knew it was gone off the bat, but just a very tough, disappointing loss that you just could not respond to the next day when you get shut out in the decisive Game 3.
Yeah, it was a rough year overall for all of Gamecock sports. Again, the women did their job. They bolstered it the best they could. Obviously, 2 heartbreaking ways to end both of their seasons there at the very end, but it's more than what the men's teams said they could have done this year, at least in terms of like the bigger overall teams that we talk about on more of a regular basis here. So here's hoping 2026 is a lot better on all fronts. That's all I can say.
It needs to be. It needs to be. Like these second to last place finishes for all the men's sports are just seeing that graphic the other day of South Carolina being 15th, and 16th. That's just not. It's not going to cut it. So you got to do better next year.
Well, one thing that can carry you some momentum into 2026 is men's basketball picking up a big victory tonight against Clemson in the Upstate. We'll dive into that matchup coming up next to start hour number 2. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Tuesday here on The Game. Tyra here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. Looking at the forecast, we do have some rain coming in a little bit later on in the week. And if you have an open crawl space in your home and experience a storm, you need to make sure there's not standing water underneath there. I've told you about it many times, but I'm happy to remind you once again, water in your crawl space can create a litany of issues for your home. It can lead to things like wood rot and floor joist problems, can invite termites in your home, and can affect the air that you and your family breathe, because about half the air in your home comes from your crawl space. That's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. If you go online to schedule an appointment today at cantyconfix.com, they'll come out and evaluate your crawl space, get the water out, and get it fixed right so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantyconfix.com for our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Huge matchup tonight, as it always is anytime South Carolina and Clemson square off in any sport. But, Jack, is it fair to say that tonight's basketball game for the men is a must-win in terms of, if nothing else, perception of what this team is and what this season can be?
To get some sort of pulse on this season and show that there is some silver lining heading into conference play, you got to win this game. And that said, it's going to be tough because this is by far the toughest ranked opponent that you have on your schedule so far. Clemson, last time I checked, is ranked 30th in KenPom. So, look, this is a tough team that you're facing. South Carolina's got to go to Littlejohn. That's going to be tricky as well, but no doubt this would be a nice feather in the cap for Lamont Paris and crew heading into conference play. It would be 3 of the last 4 years that South Carolina has beaten Clemson under Paris. So there's a lot at stake tonight for the Gamecocks.
Well, and the funny thing is, it seems to be they beat Clemson when they have bad seasons and don't beat them when they have good seasons. I'm not sure what that correlation is, but hopefully we can reverse that trend where you beat them tonight and then still have a good season after that.
I mean, yeah, if you want to have a good season, you got to win this game, right? You could go into conference play and just without winning this game and surprise a lot of people, right? That's what it would be. It would be surprising people by having a good conference slate and doing well to potentially make the NCAA tournament. That would be very much on the table, regardless of what happens tonight, is if you do well in the SEC, maybe get borderline near 500 in conference play, you can probably find yourself going to the dance. But the thing is, I don't think anyone really thinks that has watched this team this year believes that South Carolina is going to do anything in conference play. That could change, though, if they do go out here and beat Clemson on the road. That would be the signature win that this team desperately needs, because you're 0-3 right now against the brand name schools like Butler, Northwestern, Virginia Tech. Otherwise, you've beaten all the teams that you're supposed to beat, but those are just quad 4, maybe even a little bit of a quad 3 type of games that you've won. So you really haven't beaten anyone of important significance yet.
Yeah, 0-3 against quad 1 and 2 in those 3 games that you've lost so far. They have been competitive games, so it's not like you're getting blown out, but just not being able to get the job get the job done there. And it is also worth noting that conference play this year, the bar to get in the tournament via the SEC is going to be a little bit higher this year because the SEC doesn't look quite as dominant as it was a year ago. Famously, last year they had that incredible record in non-conference play before the conference schedule even started that helped bolster their ability to get 14 of 16 teams into the dance when March rolled around. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case this year. The league is under 500 against those same type of opponents in this non-conference slate so far. So the ability to get almost the entire league in probably doesn't look like a possibility this year. So your mark of having to win maybe over half your conference games might be where that line is, which is going to be a tall task for Carolina, given what we've seen and some of the inefficiencies out of them so far this year.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky, and this will be your last real test before SEC play does begin in January. You'll have 2 more games against teams that you're going to be able to beat, no problem. To wrap up December, but I mean this would be real bad if South Carolina plays the way they did on Saturday. They're going to get hammered by Clemson, I think, and I think that's the worst possible outcome you could have. Is that you have been close. You're right, you have been close in those 3 losses to high major teams, but in terms of this game, if you were to go to Clemson and just show no fight, not look ready to play, and then get blown out, I mean, that would be I think you'd have a lot of people start checking out if they haven't already. I mean, I feel like that's kind of been the case this year, is just people want to see this team do well, but they're ready to check out as soon as things go bad, which I think conference play could be really rough if things don't turn around here in a hurry. So if you're South Carolina, this is of the utmost importance to come away with a win, just to show that this team may actually be capable of some things, but that will still, the jury will still be out on that until this game tonight.
After South Carolina's frustrating 16-point win over the Citadel on Saturday, Coach Paris did speak about this game against Clemson coming up tonight? One more time. Try it again.
I don't know. I don't know if the guys. I don't know if it resonates with them as much, the specifics of the rivalry, and they have a lot of new guys. We have a lot of new guys. I don't know that it resonates with as much pop as it generally has. So we'll play that up some, but if you were at the game today, we have so many things that we have to concentrate on getting. I think if you need that to get yourself motivated to play harder or better, or I don't know. I've been a part of some really good rivalries. When I was at Wisconsin, it was Wisconsin Marquette one. When I was at Akron, the Akron Kent State, they were next door neighbors. Their recruits would stay basically on our campus in the hotel there. So I've been a part of some good ones, and sometimes you have the kind of team that you say all you got to do is walk in there and put something up on the board or hit the right button and it's on. They can't wait. The game can't get here quick enough. And so I don't know that there will be that kind of response that will be solicited by what I say, but certainly we'll mention it. More importantly, it's a great opportunity for us to get a quad one win. We had two teams in West Virginia that both were quad one opportunities at the time, and so those are coveted. And so to go on the road at a place like Clemson, they're coming off of a really tough loss, so they're going to be full of energy when we play them now, that's for sure. And so we'll have to play well. But I think more than anything, it's just a great opportunity to go up there and the campus. Some of the kids will have been talking about it, I'm sure, leading up to it. But more than anything, I think it's just a great chance for us to go up and beat a good team.
We talked about on Saturday. Obviously, the team looked very lethargic in that game against the Citadel, making a lot of mistakes, just not playing their best basketball. And it kind of sounds like from that answer there that Coach Paris may be concerned with how energized they'll be coming into tonight's game as well.
Yeah, that's a big question I have. I wrote in my 3 things to watch for story, literally, what is this team's motivation level heading into this game? Because if they weren't ready to play on Saturday against the Citadel after having a week off, well, how are they going to be up to play against Clemson, right? I mean, you could say it is a rivalry, obviously, yeah. But not all these. You brought in so many new players this year that aren't from South Carolina, that have no idea about this rivalry and don't really, haven't probably thought much of it before this game here. So I think that you could treat it like another game, but I think for South Carolina, you got to treat it more like that. You got to treat it like it's do or die, because essentially it kind of is. If you want to have a chance to do something cool this season and go on a run, you got to show, like you said, like Lamont said, this is a chance to get a quad one win. And if you are able to get that, it shows there's life. It shows that you are actually capable of winning these types of games. We've seen South Carolina is very much capable of losing these games because of self-inflicted mistakes in those previous 3 losses. Now it's time to go out here, kind of right those wrongs, and just play a lot better. We've seen what South Carolina can do. It's just they got to go out there and put it all together against good teams. That means make your 3-point shots. That's what this team's offense is built on, is sure. Hitting those threes. And when you're missing your first 19 and going 3 of 23 from the floor against a Citadel team that's one of the lowest ranked in KenPom, that's not a good recipe to win a game at all.
And as Coach Paris mentioned there, this is a Clemson team that's also kind of figuring themselves out a little bit at this point too. In just the past week, they had the game that they blew against number 10 BYU at the Jimmy V Classic, where that 22-point lead. AJ Dynasta had the incredible second half where they had to come back there, so kind of fell apart there. Maybe a little bit of a hangover from that when they played against Mercer on Saturday, where they found themselves down by 3 points with about 8 minutes to go. So they also survived against a mid-major team that really shouldn't have been on their same level. And as also Paris mentioned there, this is a brand new team. Really, the only guy they have returning is Dylan Hunter. Everybody else is brand new. You got guys from all over the place. Justin Porter from Middle Tennessee State. R.J. Godfrey, who had prior been at Clemson before, went to Georgia and now come back to Clemson. Nick Davidson, their centers from Nevada. So it's also a group of guys that probably don't know or care that much about the rivalry themselves, outside of just knowing that it matters from, an in-state perspective. So I'm interested to see what the energy levels and intensity is for both these sides coming into tonight.
No, totally. I mean, Clemson doesn't seem to be a team that is led by one true scorer, and that's it. Like RJ Godfrey's been their best player this year, but besides him, like he's averaging 11.9 points per game, 67% shooting. He leads the team in rebounds and blocks, but there are 4 other players on this team who are averaging between 8 to 10 points. So this is a team that, from the looks of it, spreads the ball around, and that may be tough for South Carolina, just because it's like, okay, we can't just focus in on one specific player. Like, you got to focus on Godfrey for sure in the front court. South Carolina's got to figure out a way to get their front court play up to snuff. But if you're the Gamecocks, you have to worry about multiple different guys being a threat in this one, and that could be a little bit tricky for sure.
And as you mentioned, this is a Clemson team that will allow you to shoot a lot of threes, but making them's a different story. So a lot of contested three-pointers is going to be a problem for South Carolina tonight. They've held 6 of their 11 opponents under 30% from three. Of course, Carolina's been under 30% in 7 out of the last 8 games. So the big thing for tonight is, can you get down in the paint and score? Can you score inside the arc? Because that's where the majority of your points are probably going to have to come from against this team, just from that statistical standpoint. But also, you haven't been making your threes anyway. Even with a game like the Citadel on Saturday, where you're getting clean looks, you made 3 of them, and it took you 30 minutes into the game to finally start hitting them.
I think the way you win this game is with the three-pointers. That's how you're going to upset teams this year, is by hitting those three-point shots. Like, we've seen what South Carolina can do when they do make threes. Granted, it's come against teams that they should be blowing out anyway, but when they're not hitting threes, we see what type of team they are, with a lot of holes that you can't really plug and fix right now. I mean, you got to hit threes to win games, and I think that's going to have to be the case for South Carolina tonight.
Yeah, going to need it. Obviously, this really sets the tone for what's going to happen in conference play starting here in a couple weeks. Tip-off tonight's at 7 o'clock, pregame coverage starting at 6:30 right here on 107.5 The Game, as well as 100.3 The Game out of Myrtle Beach, and we'll obviously be talking about that tomorrow. You'll be on your way back from the upstate, I believe, while we're doing the show tomorrow, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. So I'm heading out there later this afternoon, and then I'll be driving back tomorrow morning.
Well, hopefully we have good things to talk about, so fingers crossed that tonight does end up going pretty well. We've got some news about quarterbacks in the SEC, both staying and on the move. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher on your Tuesday on The Game.
If you're out there looking for a local, reliable HVAC service for your home or your business in the Midlands, reach out to our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating, KrantzCooling.com, K-R-A-N-T-Z, cooling with a K, KrantzCooling.com, or give Justin Krantz, the general manager over there, and his team a call, 803-755-0793. I've had Krantz Cooling out to my home several times. They did a mini split for me in the garage. They've checked out all the other units at my house to make sure they're running in tip-top shape. Love my experience so much that when my mom moved to Irmo, I got them to go out to her home too. They put in 2 mini splits for her. They handle all her HVAC needs as well. They could do the same for you. KrantzCooling.com or 803-755-0793. Since 1983, Krantz Cooling, their team has been providing great service to business owners and families in the Midlands. They can do the same for you.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. The Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling Heating. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Tuesday on The Game. As we get closer to the transfer portal officially opening in college football on January 2nd, we're getting more names being or announcing they're going to go in. So you're not actually in the portal yet, but it's basically saying, hey, when it opens, I will be available. And even some of these guys, it's more of like a, hey, I'm going to go in the portal. If you want me, give me your best offer in the next couple of weeks is essentially what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a crazy time where you're seeing some guys actually. I've seen a few guys, I think, commit to different schools already before the portal's even officially open. We could talk about this for hours, Tyler. I think there's so many problems right now with college football and the schedule, and just there's no overarching person controlling everything. Like, there should be maybe a commissioner. I think that would help a lot, kind of dictate, how everything's supposed to work. But there's no one to kind of set the rules aside from the NCAA, which, I mean, if you want to call them the rules setters, that's fine. But I don't think they really have much control at all.
They don't. Look, we know tampering is rampant across all of college football, and will continue to be that way until something major changes, which I don't expect anytime soon. But in terms of the SEC, we've had a couple of starters, or at least guys that started the majority of the season at SEC schools, go ahead and enter their name into the transfer portal. We talked the other day about Jackson Arnold as he is transferring away from Auburn after transferring away from Oklahoma. Will he get another opportunity to Power 4? We'll see. But yesterday the news comes down that DJ Lagway is transferring away from Florida. Now, from what I understood, he wanted to stay, but after meeting with John Summerall, that changed his mind. What went on in that meeting, we don't know. Now he's seeking to go elsewhere. They're talking about Baylor, LSU, and Miami being possible landing spots for him. But, he kind of falls in that category of guys that I think we were expecting to have pretty special seasons this year, and he just did not live up to that at all.
There's another guy right there, like Lenore Sellers, that was pretty sure DJ was picked third team All SEC in the preseason by the media. And
no, that was Arch.
It was Arch.
Yeah,
okay.
it was Sellers, Nussmeier, and Arch were the three preseason All SEC teams.
I think I might have voted for Lagway. Then is where my thinking was coming from there. But anyway, people thought highly of DJ coming into the year, and just did not really live up to that hype at all. Now, that said, he could go to a good situation and turn out to be the player that a lot of people thought he was going to be at Florida. That's certainly possible. He's from Texas, so it's very much possible he could go to like a Texas Tech that is going to need a quarterback after this season, right? Baylor could be another option, like you said. LSU, I think, would be really good. Imagine him playing in that Lane Kiffin offense. Could be a lot of fun to watch. That said, there are going to be a lot of teams interested. I would even put Clemson in that discussion, quite honestly, because Clemson's going to need a quarterback for sure heading into next season. So I don't think you can really rule anything out. There will be a lot of suitors interested in DJ's services. But, yeah, definitely kind of a strange situation that went down there in Gainesville, seeming like he wanted to be back there, but didn't really seem like it was the other way around where Florida wanted him there.
On the flip side of that, we just mentioned Arch Manning a moment ago. He is going to be officially returning. That announced a little bit earlier on today to Texas for his true senior season because, again, he sat behind Quinn Ewers basically 2 years. And the thought was he could start this year, go and be the number one overall pick. But I guess old granddad called it right back. We talked about this over the summer, saying, hey, he's going to come back for the fourth year regardless. And, well, the season didn't end up being exactly what we thought it was going to be for Arch Manning. So that's something that definitely is deemed necessary at this point. But big get in terms of return for Texas. And when you look at his numbers, I know we were obviously rightfully very critical of the way that he started the year, but he really did kind of hit his stride as the season went along. Did not have a great game against Georgia, but the other games in the back half of the season, he did actually play pretty well.
He definitely played a lot better as the season wore on. I mean, he'll end up throwing for over 3,000 passing yards this season after the Citrus Bowl. 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions right now. It's not a bad season at all for a guy that did kind of start out fairly slow, has stepped it up over the last few weeks. Only one interception in the month of November. So that's a good sign right there. Playing a lot better football right now. And, I mean, look, Texas didn't have the best season. 3 losses, got blown out by Georgia, lost to Florida, obviously, and Lagway, and then lost to Ohio State. But getting Arch back for another year is definitely going to be big going into 2026.
Well, and it kind of matches the theme of really the entire conference this year, because all of the quarterbacks that we talked about being towards the top of the league or expect to be in the top of the league, none of them really panned out to be that. Again, I think depending on who you talk to, many people thought that, hey, Arch Manning can go out there and win the Heisman Trophy, be the number 1 overall pick. Didn't come anywhere close to that. Garrett Nussmeier, we thought was maybe the best, most pro-ready quarterback of anybody in the SEC. And yes, he dealt with his injuries and stuff like that, but he had a bad season. Lenore Sellers didn't live up to the hype of what his season was supposed to be. DJ Lagway kept throwing interceptions and seemed to regress from, the year prior. Even John Mateer, right? Because Mateer came in from Washington State with Ben Arbuckle as his offensive coordinator, and we kind of expected that, hey, this is really going to tick up that Oklahoma offense. And yes, they still made the playoff at the end of the day, so I'm not overlooking that part. But since he came back from the hand injury before the Red River game, or at the Red River game, I guess, he just hasn't been the same. Like, he's not been as flashy and good as he was in those first couple games of the season. So pretty much all the guys we thought of were the best quarterbacks in the conference, with, I guess, the exception of Pavia, didn't really live up to the hype this year.
No, I mean, who would have thought Joey Aguilar from Tennessee would be the leading passer in the SEC this year with nearly 3,500 yards? I mean, it's really impressive right there. Ty Simpson had a pretty solid year. Didn't play well in the Georgia game, in the SEC title game, but I mean, Pavia played really well. I think the biggest surprise has to be Trinidad Chambliss. I mean, did anyone really know his name heading into the season? Like, people forget Austin Simmons was the starter heading into the year, and he was one of Ole Miss's representatives at SEC Media Days, thinking, okay, he's going to be like the big thing here for Ole Miss this season, and that just did not turn out to be the case at all. So a lot of surprises for sure.
Ty Simpson, and you're right, did not have a great game against Georgia in the SEC championship, and did have, some questionable games down the stretch, but there was a point in time this season where we thought he could have won the Heisman Trophy. We thought he was looking like the best quarterback in all of college football. And it really, I guess, kind of started with the Carolina game where maybe his production came down just a little bit. But he's somebody else that we didn't have. I guess in our defense, we didn't know enough about him, right? Here's a guy that had been on Alabama's bench for multiple years, had stayed and waited his turn, and, we just didn't know what to expect out of him. And he certainly exceeded those expectations for most of the year. His team is in the playoffs, still have an opportunity to go out there and win the national championship, obviously. But he's somebody that I think most of us would have put in the bottom half of the SEC preseason in terms of quarterback rankings that certainly outlived that.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, just some guys on here. It's like the top 5 passers in the SEC are Aguilar, Simpson, Pavia, Chambliss, and Manning. I think that is definitely a surprise because I think everyone probably thought coming in here, as we mentioned, Tyler, people probably thought it was going to be Norris, Nussmeier, Arch. I mean, guys like that helming the top of this conference, and maybe a few guys would end up in New York for the Heisman. I can't remember if we talked about that heading into the summer, or maybe it was last summer, of which quarterbacks from the SEC are going to be in New York for the Heisman ceremony. And as it turns out, you only have one in New York. So. Yeah. It's one that you didn't expect from a school that historically has not been good at football. So it's just interesting how things worked out this year. Definitely another kind of crazy year in college football.
Yeah, how about Gunnar Stockton as well? That's a guy that we didn't know a lot about because we only saw him play a game and a half, albeit in the SEC championship and the playoff last year. But even early on in the season, you could see that they weren't fully trustworthy of his abilities in that offense. That did improve as the season went along, and again, by season's end, he proved to be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC with over 30 total touchdowns between throwing and rushing, and he's got the opportunity to maybe go and win a national championship at Georgia now. Again, I think much like Ty Simpson, just because we didn't know enough about him, I think most of us sort of put him in the back half of quarterbacks in the conference coming in, but there's no doubt he is top 5, if not top 3 right now.
And how about Marcel Reed, another guy that took big steps forward this year. He'll end up throwing for over 3,000 yards this year, 25 touchdowns, 10 picks. I mean, him and Stockton, I think, were two of the bigger wowing players in the SEC in terms of quarterbacks. And it's no surprise that both of them are leading their teams to the playoffs. So definitely big years for those guys for sure. This is a league that has a lot of great quarterbacks, but you only add to it now with Reed and Stockton.
So I think it'll be interesting when we talk about the best quarterbacks in the SEC in the summer next year and how different that's going to be by the time December rolls around.
It's going to be drastically different, I think. I think we'll all have a different viewpoint on things, but maybe the hype will be real for these guys.
Speaking of quarterbacks, the one from Indiana won the Heisman Trophy. Yes, that is a real sin, as I just said. The Indiana quarterback won the Heisman Trophy. We'll get into that as well as a little bit of Heisman trivia for Jack coming up next as the Garnet Trust Tower presented by Krantz Cooling Heating continues here on your Tuesday on the Game.
If you are looking for a reliable local roofing company to help your home or business with your roofing needs, check out our friends at Classic Roofing. Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer, our guys, friends of the program here. They can help you take good care of your roof. That can be challenging, but you don't have to do it alone. They have years of expertise under their hats. Their local company, again, their families live right here in the Midlands, and the guys at Classic Roofing are GAF certified roofers. Only about 7% of roofers nationwide even have that certification. They can do inspections, installations, replacements, and repairs on your roof. You can visualize your new roof and what it would look like at classicroofingsc.com. You can check out their reviews and get a free estimate there. classicroofingsc.com, or give them a call, 803-590-7870. That's the reliable roofers over at Classic Roofing.
This is an important one. I want every kid out there who feels overlooked, underestimated to know I was you. I was that kid too. I was in your shoes. The truth is, you don't need the most stars, hype, or rankings. You just need discipline, heart, and people who believe in you. And you need to believe in your own abilities. I hope this moment shows you that chasing your dreams are worth it, no matter how big or impossible they seem. God bless. Go Hoosiers. Thank you guys all.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. That, of course, the voice of Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner on Saturday night. And again, if I would have told you 3 years ago the Heisman Trophy winner would have been the quarterback from Indiana, you would not have believed me. But that's a special season that program's having, and obviously Fernando Mendoza is a big part of why that is. And now they're the number 1 seed going into the playoff. They're playing in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. What a turnaround for that program. What a story for Fernando Mendoza to get to this point of being the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, who would have thought going into the year that the first and second place vote getters in the Heisman race would be from Indiana and Vanderbilt. I mean, that's just, it's crazy to think about. And so for Mendoza to win the Heisman Trophy is a big deal. I think he definitely has earned it. Had a great year. I think you could make the case for Pavia to win it from Vanderbilt. I would have voted for Pavia if I had a vote. That said, it's hard to deny the season that Mendoza had. He was really good, and it's easy to say that you plug any quarterback in there and Indiana is just as successful, but I don't know if that's exactly the case because he was just so prolific this year for the Hoosiers.
It is kind of interesting looking back on the preseason Heisman odds, and this is just per ESPN as one outlet here. Again, Arch Manning, no surprise, had the best overall odds. Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier were tied for the second best odds, and obviously neither one of those guys ended up having the season anywhere near what we thought they were going to be. Jeremiah Smith, fifth best odds, and then Lenore Sellers right there at the sixth best odds to win the fifth best odds to win the Heisman Trophy coming into the year. And again, outside of Jeremiah Smith, who did have a good season, nobody else in that top 5 lived up to the hype.
No, not at all. It's crazy how things looked heading into the season and just how they shake down. That's why you play the games. It's truly crazy.
Yeah, when you look down at the list here, here's some players that had better odds than Fernando Mendoza coming into the year. DJ Lagway, who we just talked about, Carson Beck, Drew Aller, Jackson Arnold, who's also transferring away from Auburn. Some guys that had the exact same odds as him, Dylan Raiola, also went into the transfer portal. Devin Dampier at Utah, Kevin Jennings at SMU, Jaden Mayaba at Southern Cal, Miller Moss at Louisville, Nico at UCLA. All these guys had the same odds as Fernando Mendoza coming into the year.
It's crazy. It's crazy, and it's just wild to think that the guy from Indiana, a program that 2 years ago was at rock bottom in college football, is now the number 1 overall seed in the college football playoff, back for the second straight year. And now they've got a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. That's insane to think about.
And Mendoza had a good season last year at Cal. I know it kind of flew under the radar because Cal was a program that not a lot of people were paying attention to. So it definitely is surprising considering the fact about who we were talking about before the season compared to who ended up winning it. I mean, when was the last time we had a truly shocking, surprising Heisman winner, you would say?
I'm looking back through past Heisman winners, and I don't know if I could really say there is one, right? It's tough to say. You probably have to go back probably before we were born for some real surprises. But I think for the most part, since the turn of the century, they've gotten it right. I can't look at any one guy and I'm thinking maybe Sam Bradford, but then you look at he had 53 touchdowns in 2008. He was really good.
Well, and
maybe 2000. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's not necessarily the surprise at the end of the year, but surprise before the season we weren't talking about this guy. You know what I mean?
I would say biggest surprise then probably either has to be I would say either I would say probably Johnny Manziel, because
Okay.
he won it as a freshman.
Yep.
First freshman to ever win the Heisman Trophy. And I think at the time that was probably a bit of a shock just heading to the season, because this guy, redshirted the year before at A&M, and then it's like who is this guy? Like this small kid that's going out here and doing these crazy things, and had a great year. So I think that when you look at it from that standpoint,
Sure.
that's probably the biggest surprise.
Yeah, I think, and look, Winston won it as a redshirt freshman, the following season. Cam Newton won it in 2010 after never being a starter at the FBS level. So those guys, we didn't even know enough about them coming into the year to really know what they would end up being. I'd put it kind of, I guess we're going to categorize it the same way as Fernando Mendoza, probably RG3 in 2011. He did have a good season for the most part in 2010 at Baylor. The team went 7-6, so one that kind of flew under the radar, but he just put up stupid numbers in 2011 that made him undeniable for the Heisman. But as far as like going into the year, I think RG3's ascendance from year one, from 2010 to 2011 and winning the Heisman Trophy, probably kind of similar to Mendoza's if I had to draw a comparison.
And I think one other, if you want to consider it surprise, it was runaway by the time the season ended. But Joe Burrow, we think back to the season he had. You got to go back to before that season. Remember, he never played at Ohio State. He transfers to LSU, was okay.
He had a good year.
He had a good year, but if you would have told someone he would just set all the record books on fire and just have a prolific season, over 60 touchdowns, winning a national championship at LSU, I don't think anyone would have seen that coming. Right now, you can look at he had a loaded receiver corps with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, like that helps a lot. But I think we also forget those guys weren't what they are now.
Right.
Like that whole LSU team was not what they were heading into that year before they became really, really good. I think that's the take you have on it.
You want to play some Heisman trivia?
Let's do it. I'll probably get this wrong, but let's do it.
All right. So since the year 2000, there have been 15 different Heisman Trophy winners that have played for the national championship in the year that they won the Heisman Trophy. 7 of those 15 won the national championship. Can you tell me, since the year 2000, what 7 Heisman Trophy winners also won the national championship in the same season?
Let's see. Tebow?
No, Tebow was not one of them.
No, Tebow 07? No.
Tebow 07 was the year they did not win the national championship.
Okay.
So they won in 06 and 08.
Well, Lionheart?
Lionheart's one of them. Yes, 2004.
Lionheart. Reggie won in 05, but they didn't win the national championship.
Right.
Derrick Henry, Devontae Smith, Mark Ingram. Those are the 3 Alabama guys. That's 4.
Yep.
Who's won it recently? That's won the national championship. Cam Newton. That's 5.
Yep.
Shoot, let's see. I'm trying to think, man. Sam Bradford?
They played for it. They did not win it. They lost to Florida in 08. 2 more.
Jason White?
Jason White, they lost the national championship.
Jesus. Oh, my God. This is tough. What are we thinking, earlier in the 2000s or back?
These are really obvious, man. There's only 2 you got left. These are really
obvious. I'm blanking on it now.
So just to recap, you said Matt Leinart in 2004. You had the 3 Alabamas with Ingram, Henry, and Devontae Smith, and then you also said Cam Newton in 2010.
Oh my God,
Two more.
Totally a big one. I'm totally blanking on this. I'm blanking. All right, just go ahead. I'm blanking.
It was Joe Burrow and Jameis Winston.
I said Jameis though, didn't I?
No, you didn't say Jameis. We talked about Jameis a minute ago, but you didn't list him in terms of this question.
Wow. Yeah. How did I? Yeah. We just talked about those guys too. I know. When you're trying to really think, you overthink it, and it's like, yeah. So
do you can you name the 8 real quick that lost the national championship in the same year?
Well, I just named a few of them.
You did.
Jason White, Reggie Bush, Sam Bradford. God, who else won the Heisman Trophy? That I can't think of it.
I'll just start from the beginning. I only got a few seconds here. Chris Winkie, Eric Crouch, Jason White, Reggie Bush, Troy Smith at Ohio State, Marcus Mariota in 2014, and then most recently Bryce Young at Alabama.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. A lot of good Heisman Trophy winners. That's typically correlates with winning. They're going to the national championship, I guess. So we'll see if Mendoza can get there.
We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour and hit the oddities of college football as the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz School and Heating, continues on in your Tuesday here on The Game. right, welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's our head and Jack Veltri along with you here on your Tuesday on the Game. And as always, it's time for the oddities of college football. And Jack, we'll start off. He's at it again. T.J. Finley is going to be playing college football 26 as he, of course, played this season at Georgia State after transferring in from Western Kentucky was the stop prior to that. And he has officially entered his name into the transfer portal as of yesterday. So, yes, indeed, T.J. Finley will be seeking yet another year of eligibility coming up next season. So, T.J. Finley still going in college football.
It's I said that to you yesterday. I'm just like stunned at this dude. Well, technically, still is applying for a 7th year of eligibility.
Yes, he is applying for a waiver.
So he's applying for a waiver. I don't know. I feel like he'll probably get it, but it's insane to me that a guy who has been in college football since 2020, which is the COVID year, is going to probably be playing college football in 2026. But I mean, where would he go is the question. He's not. It's not like he's a big name quarterback. He's just a guy he's a journeyman. That's what it is.
For a reminder, he started off at LSU in 2020, spent 2 seasons at Auburn, went to Texas State, went to Western Kentucky. This past season was at Georgia State and now is seeking to play somewhere else. For reference, he and Max Johnson were both on the 2020 LSU team, the team following the undefeated national champion Joe Burrow team, both on that team and both still going to be playing college football potentially in 2026.
And don't forget, Finley was also technically at Tulane for a little bit.
That's right. Well, he got arrested at Tulane, right? And that's what sent him to Georgia State.
Yes. So
insane.
I was thinking about yesterday. The guy has got to have completed the Rainbow Quest by now, right? Like in terms of like Shaq. Like you ever see that meme of Shaq like with all the different color uniforms? Yep. Like Roy G. Biv.
So we got the purple and gold at LSU. We got the navy and white of Auburn.
And orange too.
And orange. What's Texas State's colors? Are they green?
They're like a maroon.
Like a maroon. Western Kentucky's red. Georgia State is blue and white. And I mean, what kind of colors does he need to represent next year?
Like, what is indigo? Is indigo like a navy kind of?
Maybe like a purple. Well, no, purple because LSU is purple. Red. He's done red.
I think he's got everything though.
I don't think he's gone to any school with like black as a predominant color.
Yeah.
So maybe hey, Arizona State might need a quarterback. Sam Levitt's leaving.
Yeah, I think they have don't they have a black uniform now? I mean,
black's a big part of their color scheme. It's like a black and gold type of deal. So T.J. Finley continuing his journeyman around college football. Also, real quick, the Army-Navy game, obviously the game of honor, known for its great play on the field. Also known for some interesting snacks in the game as well. You could have gotten Humvee chicken tenders, which are served in a cardboard Humvee, tin can crab nachos, burnt-in tank nachos, which are served in a tank, or carrier chicken tenders, which are served on a foldable aircraft carrier. I love this, and I wish I could have eaten some of this.
What's the one item off here that you would eat?
Probably the carrier chicken tenders, just for the presentation alone.
I gotta say though, the nachos, I think it's the tin can crab nachos. They look, it's a sick display.
It does look good. I like that a lot. The Army-Navy, one of the best games of the year, and it seems like the food kind of stands up to that as well. Yeah. Real quick, for those that haven't heard about this, there was a school in Louisiana, Shaw High School, looked like they were getting set to, and again, I'm expanding out of high school football here, looks like they were getting set to claim the high school state championship in the Superdome, leading St. Charles 21-20. They go to kneel out the clock with under a minute to play. One of their offensive linemen takes off his helmet and goes to celebrate with the fans. This results in a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that stops the clock. The opposing team is able to use their timeouts to get a punt off or to force a punt, which they block and allow their kicker, who had missed the extra point. that allowed this game to have the 1-point differential to kick the game-winning field goal, and St. Charles wins 23-21 after a offensive lineman for Shaw takes his helmet off and costs his team the state championship. Wow.
And we're talking about an extra point, right? And then,
Yes.
the kick to win the game. We're talking it's probably from like 40-something yards out. So just crazy how that worked. And yeah, that's going.
Yep.
The kid that threw his helmet in the air and celebrated early, that's going to haunt him for the rest of his life, no doubt.
Like, legitimately, I hope that kid is okay. That is horrible. If I can't imagine being responsible for something like that.
It's just crazy. What a crazy sequence of events in that state championship game.
No doubt. Have fun at Little John. We'll talk to you tomorrow, Jack.
All right, see you then.
That'll do it for the Garnet Trust Hour. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
All right, folks, let me tell you about our friends over at Integrated Media. The beautiful thing about it is you can take your dreams for that home, make it a smart home, dreams for your man cave, dreams for the living room, and they can take whatever you're thinking about and then just turn it into a reality. You can hit them up today, integratedmediainc.com, or give them a phone call. It is 803-948-8327. Their services include basically anything to do with your TV, your surround sound, your smart home services, or securities and cameras. If you work from home, for me, it was all about my home office. Didn't really have a great connection to the Wi-Fi. Needed hardwired internet, so they came in. They ran Ethernet throughout the home into my office, into my wife's office, and made sure we had a great connection there. And then we went a step further with whole home Wi-Fi. They can also hang TVs. They can hide the wires for you, and they can go all in on that man cave too. Hit them up today. Again, for more information, integratedmediainc.com.
11 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Chris along with you here in studio. Wes, taking a trip up to the Shrine Bowl practice. He'll join us a little bit later on in the hour. Nope, obviously bowl game for Carolina football, but obviously the Shrine Bowl, huge deal this time of year to get to see some of that elite high school talent in the last high school setting, I guess, before going off and playing at the next level. So we'll check in with him coming up a little bit later on in the show. But yeah, that's what part of the December tradition in Carolina, the Shrine Bowl coming up on Saturday.
Man, there's so many guys. Like when you said that, the memories came back. The Shrine Bowl used to be even bigger. And guess who played a hand in, I don't want to say ruining it because it's certainly not ruined. Still an awesome event.
Okay.
But guess who kind of took some of the fun out?
Who was that?
It's our friends, the NCAA.
Of course.
Used to be you could go, back in the day, you could go to Shrine Bowl practice, and there's college coaches everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because, at an all-star game, especially when the recruiting calendar was what it was back then, you only had the February signing period.
Right.
There would every year be a guy or guys who would be seen at Shrine Bowl practice and then the Shrine Bowl game, and boom, now they have a bunch more offers from, major programs because they get there and they're like, wow, these guys are really good. College coaches could scout them. For some reason, that went away several years ago.
Yeah.
Probably-ish around the time I was able to start covering the program. Junior college coaches could still go. You can see them all the time.
Yep.
Small school coaches. But major FBS coaches, for some reason, couldn't go. I don't know why.
That is a bit of a lost art in the all-star games that we have now because, again, when you only had the one signing day in February, you'd have the Under Armour All-American game, the U.S. Army All-American game, these other various all-star games, or you'd look forward to like, oh, hey, this 4-star quarterback's going to announce at the Army game, or this, 5-star corner is going to announce at the Under Armour game, and, they do those little break-ins, in between quarters or whatever, and they still do that to some degree, but it's not as high of a level because pretty much, and I don't know of anybody like high level that's not signed yet in terms of like the 2026 recruits that, it's like, okay, Texas is waiting on this guy or Florida's waiting on this guy. I think everybody's pretty much done now, right?
For the most part, I think if we were to go through and, maybe look at the list of the, the top, 100 guys or so in the on three rankings, like I imagine, I'm going through right now, sign. Like everybody is signed. And I'm saying that like maybe exaggerating a little bit, but
sure.
I literally just scrolled from 0 to 100 for
all
time's sake. All signed. So, and it has lost its luster a little bit because, you're right. It used to be there's this big buildup. You would know for a long time, hey, Johnny Smith, he is going to announce at the Army game. Whoa. And then you got like this long turnaround time. You're looking forward to it. Now,
sure.
It's not televised commitments. They become more common. Streamed, whether it's, On 3 streaming a commitment, doing a live commitment on YouTube with a kid, with Instagram and YouTube and Facebook Live streaming.
But
like
McAfee does announcements.
McAfee does announcements. Yeah, everybody's doing them. So, and the recruiting calendar's lost its luster a little bit. But to get back to your original point of the Shrine Bowl, it's still a really cool event because you get to see some guys. And I think about some of the past years. I remember there was a game. It was when Todd Gurley was coming out, North Carolina. And I think at the time he was already committed to Georgia, but I can't remember. Maybe not, because I remember that was like a battle between Clemson and Georgia for Todd Gurley and Keith Marshall.
Yeah,
and
Keith
Georgia
Marshall
got
was the higher.
He was the higher-ranked guy.
Recruit coming out.
But Todd Gurley was back there returning a kick. So ball goes in there, catches it. He goes, 90, 100 yards for a score. And I was like, holy cow, look at this guy.
Sounds about right.
And he ended up being pretty good. Marcus Lattimore, Jadeveon Clowney, Stephon Gilmore. Like, there's been so many guys that have come through this game, and maybe some of the next guys that'll be really successful in college and at the NFL. Wes is there today, like you said. Charles Power from On3 is out there doing some scouting. And day one of practice yesterday, he had a South Carolina commitment as his overall MVP of practice in Jazavian Currents.
So Mr. Gatorade Player of the Year for South Carolina. Also, of course, played for the state championship just the other week. At quarterback, again, he's going to play defensive back here at South Carolina, but dude that can quite literally do a little bit of everything. That I think we're all excited to see what he does when he comes in here.
Yeah, he's, and what Charles said, he had the most complete practice on Monday. And I saw Currents in the state championship game in Orangeburg earlier in the month. Again, playing quarterback, coming in, playing some DB. And, I mean, the first thing that stands out is just the size. I mean, he's 6'3", 210. He's a physically imposing guy. But Charles noted, he played DB, also played some receiver in practice and had a really good rep against Kentavian Polo Anderson, who's a really good player in his own right from Dorman, who's signed with Clemson. So Currents got a shout-out. Zion Giles, South Carolina offensive line commitment, he got a shout-out on day one from Charles Power of On3, as did a guy I'm really interested to see how he develops long-term, Caden Ramsey.
Yep.
Listed as an athlete. He will be a tight end at South Carolina. Maybe a little bit more down the road guy because he's going to have to get bigger. He's going to have to fill out. He's going to have to get used to playing tight end, playing at times on the line of scrimmage or an H-back type role, converting from, right now he's a big 6'5" safety / wide receiver at the college level at Cross High School. But he has a lot of the physical tools. So I think if you're a South Carolina fan, pretty cool to see day one, Monday of Shrine Bowl. Charles Power, who does a great job with the rankings and scouting for On3, shouting out a few of the guys that are playing in the game.
Yeah, mentioning Caden Ramsey there, they got him listed here at 6'5", 210. He's going to need to put on quite a bit more weight to be able to hold up. If he's going to play tight end in the SEC, which kind of leads into the conversation as we look ahead. And again, we'll talk with Wes Mitchell from Shrine Bowl practice coming up at 11:30 as we look at what this roster needs in the transfer portal coming up here in a couple weeks. Obviously, yesterday we focused so much on the Norris Sellers and him returning for 2026 and the big deal that is. But also over the weekend we learned that Brady Hunt also going to be returning for another season at South Carolina. And it's a relatively light tight end room right now. So obviously you lose Jordan Dingle, you'll get back Mo Brown, you get back Mike Tyler, and you got Caden Ramsey coming in. But you need probably another maybe 1 to 2 of those guys just to fill the room out a little bit more. And again, a guy like Caden Ramsey is going to need to get in a little bit of a different shape to be able to play tight end the way you want him to here at the SEC level. So that is a room that is going to be probably a high area of focus in the transfer portal coming up here in a couple weeks. And I went back and looked, and Kendall Briles does like to use tight ends. Like, his days at Baylor, maybe not so much, but these past couple years, especially at TCU, who's tight ends very much involved in the pass game, and fully expect Brady Hunt and whoever else is in that tight end room coming up next year to be a big part of what this offense does through the air.
Yeah, so Brady Hunt included in that mix of guys because he's going to come back for an additional year. So, between you do lose Dingle, who's played a lot of football, not only at South Carolina, but obviously in his time at Kentucky. But Brady Hunt's played a good bit of football. Mo Brown's played a lot of football. Does he take a jump from being what he has been, which is a key special teams guy who's also seen some, especially this year, certainly some competitive, important snaps at tight end. Does he take a step forward? I think that's very possible.
Sure.
Mike Tyler's a guy that the staff is really high on, it seems like, long-term, but he'll be, he'll be a second-year player who kind of got the equivalent of a cup of coffee this year, as they say in baseball terms. And so he'll be that, can he develop? Ramsey, again, not a guy that I don't think he may surprise us. Maybe he comes in, and by the time preseason rolls around, he's 245.
Yeah.
Wouldn't shock me. He's coming from a 1A, a really good small 1A program at Cross. His coach, Sean Wright, has told me, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't take very long at all for him to get big, right? But it is a big jump when you're talking about doing those things. Plus, Cade Ramsey's going to play basketball this year. He's one of the few guys that's going to enroll in the summer as opposed to. So
You
all
won't
that
have
to
as
say-
much time to do
won't
that.
have as much time to adjust. So I think, to your point, Tyler, when you look at, okay, which positions, common question, which positions will South Carolina attack in the portal? The answer is probably all of them except for literally like one or two.
Yeah.
You know, tight end, I think, is one that they're certainly going to take a hard look at.
Yeah, and again, Brady Hunt, for when he was utilized this season, did fine. Obviously, kind of played that second role behind Josh Simon a season ago when Simon was your leading receiver back in 2024. So I don't think, you hope your tight ends don't have to be used that much next year because your wide receivers are playing really well. But again, Kendall Briles not afraid to use the tight ends in his offense. So having a bolstered room going to be very important for this team next year.
Yeah, it is. And I think what do you get from the portal? Well, it probably depends on, frankly, what's available. Does this team have a starter on the roster? Well, yeah, they do, in the sense that, Mo Brown caught the first pass against Virginia Tech this year. Brady Hunt has started games. They've got guys that are capable. Now, in the portal, if someone's available where you're like, this guy started at Power 4 School X and he wants to transfer to South Carolina, I mean, why not, right?
Sure.
But it could be that, or it could end up being a depth piece, but you probably feel better, to your point, about just bolstering the numbers and the competition in that room. And frankly, your tight ends are, going to be key guys on special teams too, as we've seen.
We'll take a look at some of the other areas to address in the transfer portal coming up next as we continue on with the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head and Chris Clark along with you on your Tuesday here on the game. Before we get back into the portal conversation, I want to remind you about Sweet Deals. Go to 1075thegame.com and click on the Sweet Deals tab, and you can find a lot of great deals, things that are perfect for stocking stuffers as we approach Christmas. We have the Columbia and Lexington coffee cards, all yours for just $30 and $25 respectively. You can get a gift card for Jay's Corner Restaurant and Bar, where we do a pregame show at, for just $12.50. Also, you can get a gift card for Ford's Full Court Pressure Washing for just $15 as well. Again, all this on 1075thegame.com under the Sweet Deals tab. As we focus, yes, Chris.
I'm breaking in with something complete. It's not breaking news. I'm just breaking in. I just had something random I wanted to go over on the show because I literally made myself a mental note of Tyler will absolutely love this.
All right, lay it on me.
Don't ask me how.
All right.
I got down this rabbit hole, other than I was viewing some Steve Tannehill clips on YouTube.
Okay.
Which makes sense.
Sure.
Given somehow I came across an old game. I don't know if I remembered it and looked it up or I saw the clip on YouTube. But in 2004, Tyler.
Yep.
South Carolina played Kentucky on the road.
Okay.
And a Kentucky team that was 1-5 or 1-4 at the time. And the Gamecocks had a come-from-behind win where Mike Rath came in.
All right.
And threw a pass on third down with less than a minute to go, I think, to win the game.
All right.
Troy Williamson back of the end zone. Great play. I still remember it. But in the YouTube comments, it reminded me of a drive that took place in the game. So you love the long.
I do love long drives,
long drive.
We got one.
It was not South Carolina. Now South Carolina's last drive, it was nice.
Okay.
13 plays, 88 yards, 5 minutes and 11 seconds.
Okay.
Go ahead, touchdown, and then Kentucky got the ball back.
You were operating with urgency, so you had to be quick with that.
It was not. It was well done.
It was well done. Yep.
Okay. Well, up until that point, earlier in the game, going into the fourth quarter, South Carolina was up 6-0. They won 12-7. Weird game.
But is that not the most mid 2000s SEC score?
It's a Jefferson Pilot.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure it was on. So Kentucky's lone touchdown drive in the game.
All right.
23 plays, 94 yards, 11 minutes, and 31 seconds.
That's what I'm talking about.
And so when I saw that, I was like, I have to bring this up to Tyler on the show. I'm probably going to do it in an inopportune time when he's already got something he wants to talk about. But I had to do it. I had to bring that in.
Is that full game online?
Actually, I think so. I think I was watching the full game clips.
I might have to carve out some time to go watch that drive.
Carve out at least 11:31.
I can do that.
And watch that drive.
Again, that was back when the clock actually stopped on first down. You could realistically eat up probably another minute or two in today's game by having that exact same drive.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
How about that? That's one of the better ones I've seen. 94 yards, 23 plays. But lost the game to the Gamecocks.
Yeah.
Due to Mike Rath.
It's a shame. That's a good drive.
Legendary. Doesn't get as much love as the Kimry pass.
But the Kimry pass was a touchdown.
But so was Mike Rath.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just for a first down. Okay,
back of the end zone, really, really great play. Doesn't get as much love. Not saying that Kimry shouldn't. It obviously should, but that one gets a little bit. Maybe it's because it was Kentucky and they
1-5, not a great Kentucky team.
Yeah. Anyway, I had to bring that up. So Gamecock fans, yes, I knew you would appreciate it, and Gamecock fans, I think would. I don't remember that game fondly. You won by 5 over a bad Kentucky team, but nonetheless.
Yeah, I'll have to
go
make some time over the holidays to go back and watch that. Talking about the transfer portal now, and you put out your article on Gamecock Central about, kind of preparing for the portal, what to look for, what to expect, and where Carolina's going to be looking. And as you mentioned a moment ago, pretty much every position is open to accepting guys. And again, we still don't know who else is going to leave in the portal. As of right now, everybody qualifies under what Wes has coined the healthy transfers. Yes, Nick Sharp did start some games for you on the offensive line, but you feel like that's not a detrimental hit to that room necessarily. And same thing with the other guys that have opted to go in the portal as well. So obviously, hope number one is that you retain everybody that was of serious production that can come back for another year, which as of right now, you've done that. Again, Kilgore and CC are going to the NFL. That's kind of a different thing. And one thing that we gave Beamer a lot of credit for last year is not losing anybody of note in the portal a season ago, which is very hard to do. Like in today's world of college football, even the best programs will lose. They'll lose a good receiver, they'll lose a good DB, linebacker, defensive tackle, whatever it may be. And a lot of times it's because somebody else is just offering them more money or an opportunity to play more. And for Carolina to survive the transfer portal without losing any of those guys last year was huge. Obviously, you'd love to see that happen again this year. No promises on that, but off to a good start so far.
Off to a good start. There's still time. Even though Clemson and Dabo Swinney are saying that they are not going to cut any deals before the portal opens, good luck with that if that's how you actually do it. Pretty much everybody else does.
Yes.
And so that's why you see, and Dabo was absolutely correct. When a guy goes in the portal and then he 5 minutes later has his destination lined up, or we already have information on guys who have just said they're going in the portal. We already kind of know who we're going. Brendan Sorsby has been, Texas Tech's been rumored.
Yep.
He was further outed on the Texas Tech On3 message board because somebody had a buddy who stayed in a hotel, and the YouTube account was signed into Brendan Sorsby in Lubbock, Texas.
These are my favorite ways of finding things out in college sports.
Next level. Message board geniuses had that this morning. So, what was my original point? Oh, retention. So, there is time left in this thing in the this is pre-portal. Wes has some good portal terminology. I think he's called it pre-portal. That's what we're in. Honestly, that's when the bulk of the work gets done. You've already got everybody scouted. Things are happening. You're trying to retain. We know where things stand with Lenore Sellers. You're hearing some positive vibes about Dylan Stewart, Nick Harbor. There's plenty of others, though. There's Vakari Swain and J.R. Johnson and Justin Okoronkwo. Like, there's a whole bunch of those young receivers. There will be more transfers.
Sure. Everybody.
What category does it fall in?
Right.
You're going to have healthy transfers. You want to avoid the old crap. We definitely didn't want to lose that guy transfer. Frankly, you might have some guys that are a little bit in between. Say a young player, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but you might have a young player. Like, let's say it's one, and this, again, I'm not saying this, reporting this is going to happen. Carolina signs, 6 receivers in the 2025 class.
Yep.
What if one of them says, you know what? For whatever reason, I'm going somewhere else. That's probably a scenario when you go, we really like that guy.
Yeah.
Hasn't done a lot so far. He could be really good. We would like to keep him, but you kind of understand. So that's kind of in the middle of those two things.
Jack and I brought up earlier, and again, this isn't us speculating this is going to happen, but you could look at somebody like Mazio Bennett who got passed by some of those younger guys and didn't play as much this year, where he could say, I don't see the same pathway to play like I did my first year. Maybe I want to go somewhere else too. Not saying that's going to happen, but those are how these kind of things happen as well. And one thing that you pointed out in your article on Gamecock Central is now that we know that, hey, Sellers is very likely to come back for 2026, doesn't Aaron Nolan look at that and say, I thought this is going to be my pathway to be in the quarterback in 26. Do I want to go somewhere else? Does Cutter Woods think that way? Like, you've got a very full quarterback room right now with 4 guys, but as we know across the entire country, it doesn't always stay that way because only one of those guys can play at a time. So does one of them look at that? Likely not Landon Duckworth because he did sign here. But does one of them, the other two, look at that and say, let me go try my hand somewhere else and get to play a little bit sooner? Those are things that you also have to consider in terms of the transfer portal.
Got to consider that on the player side. You got to consider that on the staff side. What is the staff's outlook? And, I do think one thing that we can say, and Shane Beamer talks about it, but I think from what we hear in just the course of covering the program day to day, it is a real thing. They're pretty honest, I think, about where things. They're not going to go tell a kid just because they want to keep them, you're going to be a huge part of things. We promise this, we promise that. They're going to kind of say, here's where things are. And, sometimes that leads to, Shane Beamer's already said there's additional players that have not announced their intentions to go in the portal yet when it opens in January that they've kind of mutually parted ways with. They had a conversation in exit meetings after the regular season, and everybody kind of has an understanding of where things are. So you're going to see some of those. Your goal is to avoid losing guys who have been are your cornerstone type guys, right, that you really need to retain. Obviously, this team needs to retain and acquire, to have the type of season that you want next year, but the retention piece can't be overlooked. There's still a lot of good players on this roster, even on a roster that went 4-8, that if they're going to, say flip that next year and go 8-4 or better, that they need to keep on this roster. And so it has been one of Shane Beamer's strengths. It's gotten better. There were the first couple years, you lost some guys. You lost Marshawn Lloyd. You lost Jordan Burch. You lost Jaheim Bell. For the last few years, the last few off seasons, they've done a really, really good job of retaining. And obviously, they're going to have a portal year that's more along the lines, frankly, of what they had in 2024. That's your goal.
Yep.
But the retention piece is huge, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we'll monitor that as the next couple weeks go by. And obviously, when the portal opens up on January 2nd, we'll see who they start getting out of the portal during that period of time as well. We'll check in from the Shrine Bowl with Wes Mitchell. Coming up next, it is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Chris Clark here in studio in Columbia. Wes Mitchell going to hop in here now on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines live from Shrine Bowl practice ahead of the game coming up this weekend, as you'll see the best of North and South Carolina on the field. Wes, I first feel compelled to ask, do we have any weather complainers today? I know it's pretty cold outside.
A surprisingly small amount. I would say, at least in earshot of me, exactly zero weather complainers. I will admit, when I walked outside this morning, I was very close. I may have even had a thought of it being a little bit chilly out, but it's actually 48 degrees now in Spartanburg, so I have actually had to shed some layers at this point.
Some of the coldest days of my life have been at Shrine Bowl practice.
Yeah.
Like, there have been some, literally like snow on the ground some years. Yeah.
Hey, game plays no matter what the weather is.
That's right.
Wes, as we look, again, game coming up on Saturday, obviously Charles Power out there taking everything in and really highlighting some of the guys standing out. Chris and I talked about it a little bit earlier. Jazavion Currents earned his day one MVP yesterday for what he did out of Shrine Bowl practice. What can you say about Jazavion and anything that you've observed so far?
Yeah, and I was talking to Charles a little bit out here as well. He's back out here for day two. Just, a big, physical, long striding kid. Is like the size of a linebacker almost, but then closes on the football like you want a DB to. He's completely comfortable playing one-on-one coverage against guys that are much smaller than him. And, the other thing I think you got to just add about Currents is that this dude's a competitor. He's just I'm trying to think, like, he's just involved. You know what I'm saying? Like some guys are out here at practice and, they're maybe going through the motions a little bit. He's the opposite of that. He's just involved in practice. At one point, he was helping run one of the drills in terms of throwing passes to his other DBs. At another point, a guy dropped a football and kind of got down to do 5 push-ups, and Currents hopped down there with him and did the 5 with him. I watched him go over and help up an offensive lineman, on his team, but a guy he was, against in that moment in terms of was scrimmaging against the guy. And so, yeah, he's just a highly competitive kid. He kind of thrives with the spotlight on him. He, has played some offense out here as well, and that's something I think he enjoys doing and is really good at as well. So, man, he's been on the recruiting radar, I want to say, since he was in like the 8th grade, and he has just thrived completely in the expectations that have been put on him ever since then.
Wes, let's quick housekeeping note here. You and I were talking about this yesterday. There were some guys on both the South Carolina and North Carolina team that were that Gamecock signees that were originally slated to play that are not. So we know, for instance, Noah Clark. I think he might have been the only guy from North Carolina. He's not playing. Just to make sure, Julian Walker also was replaced by a teammate. He's not playing. But Sequel Patterson, is he in the game or not this year?
Yeah, so there's not a Gamecock at all on the North Carolina side.
That's right.
Sequel is playing on the South Carolina end. I'm probably going to forget somebody, but off the top of my head, you have Zion Giles, Anthony Baxter on the O-line. You have Currents. You have Caden Ramsey, who is actually playing safety out here. You have Tristan Lewis, who has played some quarterback and safety out here. You have Sequel Patterson, like we said, and
I think you hit him. I think that's the ones.
Yeah. That's I think that's all the guys. So actually a pretty good group in terms of being able to see these guys all in one spot.
I saw that another guy that Charles shouted out on his social media this morning, I think, and also made his kind of his top performers list from day one of practice yesterday was Zion Giles, who you mentioned. Wes, we've seen this guy in person. I remember we saw him in camp. I think that was last summer, before he had really blown up from a recruiting standpoint. But he is a guy that we've always liked for his size, his ability to move, his versatility. What are you seeing from him? What are you hearing on him out there so far?
Yeah, looks the part, man. Reminds me a little bit of like a Shed Surratt, in that he's this in-state kid that, was highly recruited and could have went to several different places, but maybe just isn't quite talked about as much as he should be, just in terms of his upside. I think much like Shed, he could end up inside or outside at tackle. When I've seen him, he's been playing trying to think if he's played both tackle spots or not. He's definitely been playing tackle, though. He's been playing tackle out here, and just is that sort of long, athletic, long-armed kid that you look for. Really, I mean, this entire offensive line, dude, is just massive. Like, like I said, you got Baxter out here, but you got Desmond Green, who's going to, Florida. You got Trey Aiken out here. You got Malcolm Gaston out here. All guys that have had, FBS Power 4 offers, and so it's just a massive O-line in the first place, and then you look at Zion and just the way he moves, I think, is what separates him probably from those other guys. Desmond Green may be the biggest of the bunch, but Malcolm just looks very, very light on his feet.
Again, Wes Mitchell joining us from Shrine Bowl practice out there in Spartanburg on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. You mentioned Caden Ramsey a moment ago, getting some work on defense as well. And Charles Power noted he was probably the most physically impressive guy on the roster at the Shrine Bowl this year. We were talking earlier, kind of being thought to come in as a tight end here at Carolina, but again, have to put a lot of weight on. Does it look like he's 210 pounds, or what's your assessment when you got eyes on him?
Yeah, I mean, he is a huge kid, just a huge frame. Probably when you start looking at all those guys playing DB, even with Currents and Tristan Lewis, and obviously Sequel's not a huge guy. Sequel actually is playing corner out here, has worked a little bit at receiver, but he's on the list as a DB. And so, I look at Caden Yeh, he's going to have to put on some weight, but he has a frame to do so, I think. Now, I wish they were playing him at tight end, to be honest. Like, he's not quite as twitchy at DB as, like, a Tristan Lewis, for example. I mean, Tristan Lewis, from an athletic standpoint, has got to be one of the most impressive dudes here. From what Charles was telling me, Tristan only really played quarterback when he was out here yesterday, so he didn't get a great look at him moving around. I'll be very curious to see what Charles – his reaction is to watching Tristan move around out here for a day. I think that would be something to keep an eye on when Charles does his report afterwards. But, yeah, I think with Caden Ramsey, I mean, Chris and I saw him in the summer, and the first thing you see is just, this kid is a wide frame, just tall kid. And, there's going to be an adjustment, obviously, to SEC play, but I think he's a guy who has those markers you're looking for, especially in modern day. Like tight ends aren't necessarily like 265 pounds anymore. He kind of has the look of that sort of hybrid receiver tight end model that a lot of people are coveting these days.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by those guys because they, the two that you mentioned in Lewis and Ramsey, because both of them are going to play positions at South Carolina that they haven't played. We saw Tristan Lewis play DB in summer camp, but he's a guy who played quarterback and played it very well for Greenwood. And I like that like physical markers, like he has all those. I remember talking to his high school coach, Chris Liner, who was at Greenwood as an assistant when they had Armani Edwards, Josh Norman, DJ Swearinger, and he's like, this guy has the same amount of raw ability or maybe even more than those guys. And when you hear that, you go, oh, okay, that's something, right? And then Caden Ramsey never played tight end, really. He's played receiver. He's played safety. Had 21 interceptions over the past 2 years. Had 14, led the state as a junior. So those guys are really, really interesting. Wes, one more guy. We got about a minute, I think. How's our guy Squirt doing over there?
Good. That is Anthony Baxter. For those who don't know, top nickname on the team at this point. I saw him playing some center. I think that might be a fit for him. Again, Giles is kind of the one that just takes my attention away, I think, on the O-line group. But, yeah, old Squirt, he's hanging in there too.
How did we get the name Squirt? What's the story behind
We don't
that?
know, but we're
We don't
going to
know?
find out. It's,
Okay.
Yeah, we gotta
Looking
put that
forward
on
to
the
learning
list.
about that one.
Yes.
That's something had to have happened to get that nickname. Wes, stay warm out there, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, Wes Mitchell out there at Shrine Bowl practice. We'll come back, wrap up the hour. How did we do on buy or sell over the weekend? That's coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Chris wrapping up the hour here on your Tuesday on the game. Again, tonight, men's basketball in action taking on Clemson. up in Clemson. Tip-off at 7 o'clock. Premium coverage starting at 6:30 right here on The Game. As we wrap up the show, it's time to review buy or sell from over the weekend. Of course, not a full slate of college football. We did have some games to talk about. Chris went into the weekend with the 3-point lead over West, 50-47. I'm bringing up the rear with 43. I know you don't keep track of it. Do you feel like you did good this weekend?
I never feel like I did well.
Okay. Buy or sell number one. No team had scored more than 31 points in the Army-Navy game since 2013. Would somebody eclipse that on Saturday? We both bought it. West sold it. West was correct. The final score was 17-16. Great game, by the way.
I did. You know how I told you the other week, like I'm not typically, because sometimes I don't even remember the questions. I was sitting there watching the game, and they were in like, I think maybe the end of the first quarter, and I think like each team had a drive.
Navy had a 7-minute, 44-second drive to open the game and scored a touchdown.
And when that happened, I was like,
beautiful.
We're not getting one team to 31 points. They may score every time, but they're still not getting there.
You know how you know they're having long drives in that game when they keep having to take commercial breaks after every timeout because they keep getting behind. Like, all right, we got to make up for this because that's what happens when you have two teams that run the ball that well. Buy or sell number two, the top three in Heisman voting would all be quarterbacks. We all sold on this, and we were all correct. Jeremiah Love did come in third place. Julian Sand came in fourth.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Fernando Mendoza winning.
I mean, I feel like, and I don't know this for sure, but I've seen a lot of the sports writers who have Heisman votes revealing their votes.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of us being people in sports media who had a vote, voted the same way, which was Mendoza, Pavia, Love. Like I saw some people had, they mixed it up or threw in, the Texas Tech defender, whoever else. But I think that was kind of it. And that's what I suspected would happen. So,
buy or sell number three, the Celebration Bowl. Prairie View A&M had not allowed multiple touchdowns passes since their game against Northwestern State back in September. Buy or sell, SC State could accomplish that feat. They did indeed. Ryan Stubblefield, who had to come in for an injured Billy Atkins in a game that they roared back from being down 21-0 at halftime, did throw 2 touchdown passes. We all got that correct, and we didn't get to talk about it yesterday. Hats off to Chinnis Berry.
Man.
Again, he did so many great things when he was at Benedict, goes to SC State, taking over for a legend, gets them to the Celebration Bowl last year, and then wins it in year number 2.
46-13 with now the Celebration Bowl win. 46-13 as a head coach between his time at Benedict and at SC State. Veteran, he's been in the game since 1996.
Most of that as an assistant.
Just 2020 was his first head coaching job. Somebody hire this man.
I know.
I mean, I'm not saying like SC State's obviously produced like a lot of it. When I was in their stadium in Orangeburg, you look up in the walls in the concourse, you're like, there's an NFL guy. There's an NFL guy. Tons of talent. They produce some really good coaches, whether assistants or head coaches. But, like, one of these bigger schools at some point going to go, Chinnis Berry. Yeah. We need that.
Hey, Google him. He wins.
He does.
He can say that.
He really does.
So we all bought that. We were all correct on that. Again, shout out to SC State for the HBCU National Championship. Another team in action over the weekend from the state, Newberry in Division II, traveled to number 1 Ferris State for a shot at going to the D2 National Championship. Ferris State had only scored under 40 points 3 times this year. Buy or sell, Newberry could hold them under that. We all sold, and we were all correct because they got beat 49-17.
Yep.
I mean, good season, but Ferris State, they're the Alabama of Division II.
Yeah. The Wheels.
Yes.
That's what I call them. They're the Wheels. That's their mascot for me.
Last question, buy or sell, Michigan would have a head coach by Monday. We all sold on that. We were all correct. By the way, that shot of Sharon Moore in the jumpsuit at his arraignment on Friday, to go from your presser on Monday to that on Friday, wow, insane.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing, and I know it's honestly a sad situation all across the board.
Sure.
When you look at all the different aspects of that, but yeah, what just an extreme turnaround in a matter of a few days, and just adding to the level of drama in college football. You know, a lot of it lighthearted and fun, you know, type of stuff. That's obviously not. But, yeah, it just seems like, to get back to the coaching search point, you know, I think that would have been very, very quick.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And now it's like, okay, who are they going to get? Again, it's all kind of the same names we've been talking about. Eli Drinkwitz, Jed Fish, Kenny Dillingham, Lincoln Riley's name's coming up. Like, who can they poach? Because you're going to have to poach somebody at this point because most everybody else is already taken. So, and again, portal opens up in a couple weeks. You only have so much time to do this. It's a messy situation. And again, somebody like Julian Walker, I don't know if he knew what was going on or not, but he dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Yes, those players are in a very confusing time right now.
They are. Kalen DeBoer says he's staying. I think I believe that.
Yeah, I do too.
It's not the Nick Saban, I won't be the next Alabama coach for the current Alabama coach. I won't be the next Michigan coach, basically. Seems like that's legit.
Wes did close in by 1 point.
Yep.
So you have a 2-point lead now.
Here we go.
I'm still bringing up the rear. I got 47. You have 54. He has 52.
Okay.
So we'll do buy or sell on Thursday this week, by the way. Just programming note.
Okay.
Won't be here on Friday. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show up next on your Tuesday on the Game.